Hey guys, welcome to Indie Game Hustle. My name is Charles, and in this video, we're going to take a look at how to set up our character to use Unity's Navmesh. And our character is going to be controlled using Game Creator, and Game Creator has some pretty great features to allow our character to kind of move based on the Navmesh. Okay, so let's take a look at our scene. The first thing we're going to notice in our scene, we have a cube here, we have our character, and I have some directional lights here. All right, great. So the first thing you want to think about is, why do we need to set up a nav mesh for our game or for our scene? And a lot of times, you're probably playing a game, and usually it's like a point and click game, and you click somewhere on the game and the map, and your character moves to that location. But along that path, there may be trees, there may be rocks and walls and things, obstacles basically, and our character will kind of go around it to the location where you selected. And so that's what we're trying to do here. So let's go ahead and get started with that. All right, so the first thing I want to do is select, let's see here, our mesh here, and we're going to basically select our floor. Now what we want to do is basically define what's a floor and what's I guess a object that you want to avoid. Okay, so basically what's walkable and what's not walkable. All right, so let's first do that. So I'm gonna first just go ahead and do this. I'm gonna copy this mesh and I'm going to pull it out here. And the asset that I'm currently using to do that, this is not ProBuilder, this is called UModeler. So it may be a little different, but for the most part, you can use ProBuilder, you can use UModeler, or you can use Unity's built-in cubes and whatnot. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this out. And I'm basically just blocking out where our character is going to walk. And we're just going to try to keep this pretty simple here. All right. And I want to just get enough space there. All right. And then let me just go ahead and create a path over here. And I'll create a walking path for our character to get to this area. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and select this and copy this over here. All right, great. All right, so the next thing I want to do is go ahead and create, I'm going to copy, and I'm going to create an area for our player to jump across. Okay, so I want to go ahead and do this. I'll zoom in. It looks like a decent enough distance, I believe. All right. And then let's see here. I will go ahead and create another path. Like so. And we'll have the character come over to, I guess, maybe another island. So what we'll do is pull this back like so. And then I'll copy and paste this. And then let's go ahead and move this puppy just like so, pull this out. And you can pretty much design whatever you want for where your character is going. So basically just go ahead and create the floor for the time being. All right. And then we're going to do something else here. So over here, what I will do is create a ramp. And I'll bring that up there like so. And I'll take the vertices here and I'll pull those out like that. Okay. And what I'll do, just to make it interesting, I'm going to grab this here and I'm going to pull this out a little further. And then I will select this vertice, and then I'm going to pull this out like that. Okay, great. All right. And I'll bring this up just a little higher. All right. Doesn't have to be overly detailed, but I just wanted to create something like that. All right. So these are going to be our walkable areas. Okay. And now let's go ahead and create a wall. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and now create a wall here. Just like so. And then on this side, I'm going to create another wall. And I'll just go ahead and bring that up like so. And I'll make it the same height as well. Okay, great. And I'll bring this back a little bit. All right, perfect. All right, great. So I think that's just enough just to get the idea going. All right, so the next thing we want to do is define these floors and these walls and whatnot. So the first thing we want to do is go over to where it says window, go down to AI, and go over to navigation. And over here, you're going to have areas called agents, areas, bake, and object. And typically speaking, we're only going to really mess with object. We're going to bake. We may or may not mess with agents or areas, but we'll see. But the first thing we want to do is make the object walkable. So what you want to do is go ahead and select this mesh here. And then you want to go ahead and make it walkable. Now, what you want to do is select where it says navigation static. You would just turn that on by clicking that there and just turn it on. If yours is probably not going to be turned on by default. All right, and then I'm going to select the rest of these. So certain ones were already, so let me just go ahead and select this one, and I think we can do a mass grouping of this and this as well. So I'll just go ahead and make sure that these are all selected as walkable. Okay, great. All right, awesome. Now the next thing for the walls, we want to make these static as well. So just like these objects, these are going to be navigation static. So the walls are going to be navigation static as well. But we're not going to make them walkable. What we want them is not walkable. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select that. And that's it. All right, great. So the next thing we want to do is go ahead and click on the bake area. And here you're going to have a few options. You're going to have like agent radius, agent height, slope, etc. And I'm just going to leave everything default. You can do that as well. And we're just going to go ahead and hit the bake button here. Okay. Awesome. All right. So this blue area is basically where your player will walk, and the area that is cut out is based on the non-walkable sections. Pretty self-explanatory, right? So the next thing we want to do is just test this. But let me take a look at our player. In Game Creator, go over to your player, and then you want to go down into select the point and click. So you want to go to player input, input type, and select point and click. I think default is going to be directional. And then above that, you want to change this to navigation. But basically it says can use navigation mesh, but I'm going to leave that off just to show you what's going on. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play. And actually, let me go ahead and change my camera setting. So I'm going to select my camera and basically get the position I want here. And I'm just going to go to game object and align with the view. Okay, so now my view is like this. All right, great. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play now. And in order to get this blue area, your walkable areas visible, just go ahead and hit your gizmos and then select the navigation here. And so as you can see, now when we select anywhere in the scene, our player is moving there. Okay, so here's the thing though. If I select over here, it's trying to go a straight line, and that's not going to work. And the same thing, if I select way over here in the corner, as you can see, he's just rubbing against the wall, trying to go a straight line from point A to point B, and we don't want that. We don't want our character to fall off the space or anything like that. So to make it a little bit more intelligent, you click on your player and of course hit this here where it says can use navigation mesh. Let's go ahead and hit play and turn that on. And so now when I click, he's going to go around, and if I click back over here, navigating perfectly around the sections. And if I click up here, it should go up the slope, and I'm going to turn the gizmos off. And as you can see, our player is navigating properly. So if I click here, you see it's going to go all the way around there, and it works actually pretty good. All right, so I'm going to click over here. Let's see what happens. Nothing. He doesn't come here because he's not able to cross from this navigation point to this one. And why is that? Because Unity also has another feature built in where you can link between one location and the next. Let's take a look at that. All right, so what we want to do is basically our goal now is to move our player to be able to jump from here to here, move from here, jump from here to here, move here, and then move from here to here. Okay, so how would we go about doing that? So the first thing we want to do is define what objects will allow us to do that. So what I'm going to do is in my inspector, I'm going to select that. Let's see here. I'm going to select my object. I'm going to go back to navigation. I'm going to go back to the object here. And what we want to do is generate something called off mesh links. Okay. So go ahead and select that. And you may have to click change with children. And then, so that is there, okay? And then the next thing we want to do is select this object here because we're going to be connecting this to this. And so we want to make sure that this is selected as well. So it's already selected in my case. All right. And then we want to select this piece here and make sure that is selected. And then we're going to select this one, do the same thing. And we're going to do the same thing to this piece here. All right, great. So now we've designated this piece to this piece, this piece to this piece, and this to this. And what it's basically going to do is auto-generate something for us. So now that we've done, let's take a look. I'm going to go over to bake, and I'm going to hit the bake key. And after I hit the bake key, let me show you what's going to happen. So we hit the bake key and nothing happens. And you're trying to figure out why. Well, remember, we're having the player jump from here to here, here to here, and here to here. There's a distance between this, and we need to change that. So what we want to do is figure out that distance. Okay, so it looks like this is probably either 3 meters, maybe 4. So I'm going to go ahead and put this up to 5, right? And we can even make it high to where maybe I'll just leave this at the distance of 5 and let's see what happens. All right, so I'm going to hit bake and there we had it. So this distance is somewhere between 1 and 5. So that's good. Okay. So for instance, if we move this to 2, it probably won't bake because that distance is too short. And if we put 3, it's not, let's see, 3, bake, it's not 3, it's probably 4. And that'll put us probably right where we need to be. Okay, so now let's go ahead and get our player going and let's hit play. All right, great. So look, so far we're good. I'm going to go ahead and click here and then I'll click here. Perfect. All right, and I'm going to click here and I'll click here. Nice. So now our player is able to traverse between different places based on where you click. And that's actually pretty cool. So I wonder if I click here, perfect. All right, click there. And of course, if I click here, is it going to come this way? No, because the shortest distance between there and here is what it's going to choose. It's going to choose the shortest distance. Okay, awesome. All right. So next, let's talk about, continue talking about the links. Because what if you want to manually create your own link as opposed to letting Unity basically, I guess, auto-generate these links for you? So let's see if we can do that. So the first thing that we need to do that is going to be, let me go ahead and create some new meshes, and we'll have our player traverse those. So I'm going to put them, let's just say, what would be a good place? We can put it, say, right here. We'll just have it go right here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and create a mesh here. And actually what I'm going to do is make sure that I am like this. All right. And then I'll create another one here. All right, perfect. All right, and I'm just going to go ahead and move this guy right against that wall, right against there. And we're just going to create a space between here and here. All right, and I'm going to do something else. I'm going to take this and I'm going to make it uneven. Right? So I'm going to take this, do it like this. And then I'm going to take this and put it like right there. All right, cool. Actually, no. Let's do it like this. I'm going to select this, and just make them even. And I'll show you how this works. All right, great. All right. So what I'll do is go ahead and make sure that this is selected. I'm going to go ahead and set this one like that. And we don't want to generate those off meshes there. Let's leave that off, see how that works. And we're going to do the same thing here. All right, great. All right, so what we're going to do is, instead of letting them generate it automatically, we're going to create them manually. Okay, so the first thing I'll do is I'm going to go in here and right click and create an empty game object. And I'm going to call it start. Okay, and then I'll duplicate it and I'll call this one end. Okay, so you can probably already guess one is going to be where they start and one's where they're going to end. Okay, so I'm going to put that one there and that one there. And they may not be in the proper position, but we'll get that going here in a second. So for start, what I'm going to do is go to my inspector. I'm going to go to add component, and you're going to search for off mesh link. So, or you can just type in the word off and then select that and add that to start. Okay. Now in here, you're going to have a few different things. You're going to have start, where you're going to drag the start into the first transform, and you're going to drag end into the, obviously, the end transform. Okay. And it has something called cost override, bi-directional, basically meaning it will be able to go in both directions, so you can transfer back and forth versus just one direction. And then if it's activated or not. And also auto update positions is there. All right, so here we go. So the first thing I'm gonna do is go to my navigation, and I'm gonna go to bake, and I'm gonna bake. Okay, so that's going to go ahead and set everything up. And as you can see, because we have navigation tab selected, we can see that directional component that we just created. So at this point, all we need to do is move them in position. Okay, so I can move this here, and I'm going to move this one over here. Okay, and now of course it doesn't have to be parallel like that. It can just kind of be like that if you want or whatever. But just for this reasons, we're going to do it like this. And as you can see, the arrows show that you can traverse back and forth like so. So just as a test, let me go ahead and select bi-directional and see if that changes anything. So yep. So by turning off bi-directional, you see the arrow is now this way. So now You can go this way, but you'll get stuck because you won't be able to jump back. So we don't want that. We want to be able to go back and forth. All right, perfect. So now, what do you think is going to happen? So for instance, if I select this area here, we want our player to traverse here, is going to go here and then go there. Okay, so that's what we really want it to happen. So make sure we can still see it. I'm going to actually take my camera and move it into a different position, like so. And I'm just going to go to Game Object, Align View. All right, and let's go ahead and hit play and see what happens. All right, so we have our player here. And so we're going to go ahead and select right here. And he should traverse, boom, just like so. And now he can get over here. Now, if I select this area, he's going to go that way to get there. And that's exactly how you would create those. So now you can create multiple ones any type of way that you need them. Say, for instance, you just needed a reason for him to only be able to go this way but not traverse this way. It's all about your level design at that point and based on your actual environment. But generally speaking, that's how that works. It's actually super easy. All right. So there's something else I want to talk about is the different walls and avoiding the walls. So for instance, let's go ahead and hit play. When you select this, he's coming from this direction, so I'm going to select behind this wall here. And he's going to go that way if I select this. But you see how close he is to the wall when he goes? He's literally hugging the wall. And you may not want your character to be so close to the wall. It looks great, it looks okay, but you may not want him to hug the wall so much. So there's a way to avoid that. So what you want to do is we want to go into the click the inspector, I guess, and what I'm going to do is select the wall or whatever object that you have. We're going to select this one, for instance, and I'm going to go into here and I'm going to select Add Component, and we're going to search for Navmesh. And when we do that, you're going to see the word Navmesh obstacle. So go ahead and select that. Now, what's happening is what we don't want is this to hug so close, so we can put a barrier around it without increasing the size of the actual wall. So we're going to hit this button here that says curve, and you see the size here. So I'm going to change this to maybe 6. I'm going to change the Z to maybe 3. Okay. And so I'm going to go back to navigation. And now you can see that the wall is now have a nice little cushion around it. And we can do the same thing for this wall as well. So if I select it, I'm going to go back to my inspector, obstacle, go down here, carve. I'm going to select maybe 3, yeah. And then maybe on this one, I'll do maybe a 4. That's fine. Just depends on your scene. And so that kind of creates that. All right, so let's go ahead and hit play and see what that looks like. All right, so I'm going to select this area. And he's going to go around that space. And he does not touch it. Perfect. Now, since this is a wall and it's kind of got sharp edges, I believe that we can actually set it up to where it's not a box. So let's change it to a capsule. And that may work for you. It just depends on what you need. But I'm going to increase the radius to maybe 5. No, that's way too much. Let's do something like a 3. Let's see if how that looks. Okay, so it's going to create actually quite a bit of space for both objects, so we wouldn't even need to do that. So that means let me go ahead and turn off. I can go to the other mesh and turn this one off, or at least, yeah, let's just go ahead and turn it off and see. There we go. So as you can see, that's probably enough for both, but it just kind of depends on what you need. I would probably keep this on, turn this into a capsule as well, and change the radius for this particular one, and go back to the other one as well, and maybe that won't be so big. And you just kind of just play with that, just kind of based on whatever you need, I think. So whatever the case you need, you can play with that. But I think that may be a little bit more reasonable. And so when you're actually walking around it, it'll walk more around that space as opposed to kind of right on a corner. So it just kind of depends on what you need. All right, so now that we've taken a look at how to do that there's one more thing we want to just kind of play with here, and that is going to be playing with the different areas. Now we know that we have walkable, we have not walkable, we have this one called jump, and then you have these user created ones. And basically next to them they have something called cost, so 1 and 2. And then you can of course put the cost in based on what you need. Now what this means is, the way I understand it is that you can have certain areas in your scene that cost more for the player to traverse, or your enemy or whatnot to traverse. So let's see if we can do that. All right, so the first thing that we want to do is go ahead and set up an area so we can test this out. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and create a mesh here, and I'm going to set this to this. All right, great. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. So I'm gonna do it, let's say, I guess right here is a good place. So I'll just create a 4x4 there. And then I'll copy and duplicate these. And I can just do this. And then copy these. All right, great. All right, and then what I'll do is bring this up, actually, and just go ahead and do something like that. Actually, I'm gonna bring it down so we can see. All right, cool. All right, so the next thing we want to do is go ahead and turn these into something. So we want to label these. So I'm going to create one called fire and one called mud. All right, and we're going to cost, let's see if it works. We're going to set the cost for the fire to be something like, I don't know, like 10, and then set the cost for the mud to be like 2, right? Something obvious. All right, so then I'll go ahead and select one of these to be fire. So I'll make this one fire. So I'll go to object, make it a static ash, and then I'll set it to be fire. And then I'll set the, let's see here, I'll set this to be mud. And then I'll set the rest to be walkable. Okay. All right, great. And then this one here is going to be set to not walkable. Perfect. All right, so let's go ahead and bake so we can see that result. All right, great. And you can see that those colors are represented on that. And I'm going to select all these. And I'm just going to align it with this area here. Actually, it doesn't matter, does it? No, I'm just going to leave this here. That's fine. All right, and then so what we're going to do is move. I'm going to rebake. And then what we're going to do here is move our player over here. And let's go ahead and do that. All right, cool. All right, so let's see if this works out. So let's see here. So I'm gonna go ahead and rebake, and then I will hit play. Of course, we need to change the camera. Let's move the camera into place, into some type of focus. So let's focus something like this. All right, camera and align with view. Good. All right, I'm gonna hit play. So the idea is, if I were to click here, if you notice, it went all the way around to get there. And why is that? Because from this point to this point, that cost was less. So let's see, fire costs 10, right? Mud is 2. So let's see, if I select this point, instead of going here, that was a shorter route, but this costs less because that's like 1, I guess for each area is like 1, 2, or 4, 6, 7, and maybe 8. So maybe that costs less. So this is 10 already. So this is 10, 1, 11, 12. If I were to select this, I assume he's going to go this way because this is cheaper. So that's interesting. It worked the last time and it worked that time. So it just really depends on the cost and how it's allocated. But that's basically how that works. It's all based on cost. So see, yeah, because that was a shorter distance for sure, but that cost there is allocated different. So so there you have it. That's pretty self-explanatory. You just got to kind of play with that, and it's just based on a lot of different things. So I would say play with that. But for the most part, I hope this was useful to you guys. You know, I thought setting up Navmesh would have been difficult, but it's not that difficult if you just kind of get in and just look at it for what it really is. I'm sure there's way more difficult or more complex ways of setting this up, but this was, for me, the quickest or the easiest way to understand it and to show you guys. All right. So, of course, feel free to reach out to me anytime. I'll be always here. I'll be hanging out in the Discord, and I'll be hanging out in the Game Creator Discord. I'm usually there or in my own, but mainly in the Game Creator one. Feel free to like the video if you enjoyed it, and I hope this really helped you guys. So other than that, always remember, never give up and keep moving forward. Peace.